We're here at Cosmic Cheetah. Why don't you tell us about yourself? How did Cosmic Cheetah came to be, etc.?
I've been teaching and producing music for a decade and a half now. I never really had formal branding until I got my space on Bloor Street, and I had 30-foot signs that I had to fill with something. The name Cosmic Cheetah Studio came to mind. It just kind of came to me one night, and I loved the thought of wanted something that would catch people's attention and also be fun. You know, music should be fun. I wanted a name that would imply that. So it was a nice juxtaposition when I had Cosmic Cheetah Studio, which kind of was like a fun name, but I had it in really professional, black, sleek writing. So it was a nice, like, formal touch to it with the fun name of Cosmic Cheetah Studio.
Cool. And you're also a vocal coach, is that right?
That's right, yes.
All right. How long have you been doing that for?
I've been studying vocals for about 20 years, and I've been teaching for about 10 years. It's a huge passion of mine, helping singers discover their own true voice and pulling out their own authentic sound.
Yeah, because it's interesting because you always think of singer as somebody who's talented or not talented. So how do you teach somebody how to sing?
Everyone has a certain inborn innate talent, and I always ask the singer, what is your goal? If the singer wants to sing something like Bob Dylan that's more talk singing and they can do it fine, then they're fine. They can just sing, perform, right, do their thing. But if they're trying to sing songs that maybe the pitches are too high for them to hit, or they don't have enough power that they need, then you need to work on your voice. So I always ask the singer, what are your goals? What are you trying to do with your voice? Because voice training, there's no end to how far you can take it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So I always say, learn the skills that you need and no more.
Mm-hmm. So how much talent comes into learning? Like, can you be awful at singing but still be a good singer if you learn correctly?
That's a good question. A lot of people ask me that because we all grew up having that one friend that was amazing at singing, and then everyone else was just mere mortals. Mm-hmm. So we think they had a special gift that no one else can attain. What is singing, first of all? It's the ability of your vocal cords to resist air pressure.
Okay.
And the more air pressure your vocal cords can resist, that means the more strength they have to facilitate producing different pitches. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's more to it than that, but ultimately it just comes down to muscles. How developed are the muscles in your vocal cords? Your vocal cords are tiny things, like as big as your fingernail. With proper training, just like, if I've never played basketball in my life, with proper training, conditioning, strength training, and also learning the game, I'll eventually be able to go to the court and play some pickup with the guys. And I believe that anyone can do that with the proper training. So anyone can sing. But then, can anyone be Michael Jordan?
Right.
So it kind of, like, to put it in perspective, singing has a mythological thing around it because you can't see the vocal cords. Mm-hmm. You can't see the amount of training that someone's put into their voice. Mm-hmm. When you see a bodybuilder, you see their body developed. Mm-hmm. Or when you see a pianist, you can see their fingers moving.
Right.
So you can visually see it, but a vocal cord, when it's developed, you don't see it.
Okay, so for somebody who wants to sing, but they're probably not good, maybe not finding the right pitch, what would you suggest the first step for them to take? Is it hire a vocalist coach like you, or to go on the internet and start searching? Like, what's the first step that they should take?
That's a good question. I feel like in this age, everyone wants to find a YouTube video first, and everyone feels like they want to teach themselves. Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to say that that's not a good idea, but the thing with vocal training is that you can never actually hear yourself. Right. Just like when you hear yourself on an answering machine, you're like, wow, I really sound like that? Mm-hmm. So you're hearing, what I hear of my own voice speaking is I'm hearing the resonance in my skull of my voice going to my eardrums, and also what's bouncing back at me. So I'm not a good objective coach of what I'm saying and how I sound. And second, it's very easy to build bad habits when you're training alone. Mm-hmm. So it's not that learning from YouTube is bad or training yourself is that you need someone else to almost tell you what's good and bad, because we ourselves are not the best judge.
Right, for sure. Is there any similarity? Because I know you also collect instruments. Is there any similarity training yourself playing an instrument versus training yourself how to sing?
Absolutely. It's always good to have a teacher. I will say, whenever you want to get to a certain level of musicianship, having a mentor, having a teacher is great. And also, it's fun. The best moments in my musical journey some of them have been with a mentor, and getting that wisdom that's been, passed down through them from their teacher and their teacher. It's a bit of a lineage, and to be part of that is an honor. And then you can take what they've said, you make it your own, and having someone else hear what you're doing, give you feedback, really keeps you moving the direction you want to be moving without moving back. Because when you get into muscles, we can build muscle memory, and if that muscle memory is programmed in the wrong way, it takes a lot more time to unprogram it.
What advice would you give to somebody who is shy at singing?
I first tell them that they should be shy of singing, because singing is terrifying. Most people would rather stand on stage naked than have to sing a song in front of people. Singing is incredibly exposed. You are very vulnerable. Everyone's going to have an opinion about the way you sound, and then God forbid you hit a wrong note. They should be scared. Singing is terrifying. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage to do it. So with that aside, if they still want to do it, then I commend them. And then,
so for the first step, would you recommend them maybe to record yourself and start hearing it? How do you come out of that shyness and kind of present yourself a little bit more? What steps should you take?
Starting to record yourself is great. Getting used to hearing yourself back really helps. Allowing yourself to be heard. Whether it's with a vocal teacher, whether it's with a friend, whether it's even at an open mic, but just letting yourself be heard and realizing that it's okay. I mean, you can make a mistake. Life goes on.
So just try.
Just try, yeah.
Cool. As a studio owner, how do you stand out between all the other studios here in Toronto and make sure that artists reach out to you and maybe not somebody else?
Toronto's a big city, and establishing yourself in this industry is not easy. I always say pick a niche, just like any other business. Pick a niche, pick a genre of music that you really love, and focus on that, especially in the beginning when you're starting out. Go to concerts, go to shows in that genre. Get known in the industry, get to know the up-and-coming artists. Party with them, hang with them, go to bars with them. Become someone that people know, and then I never say you should have to convince anyone to work with you. It should be an energy that builds that just should happen naturally.
All right. So for a producer who's not really a singer, but they're a sample maker, what can they do to get the most out of their vocals?
I would say start learning the fundamentals of the human voice and how it works in the human body, and also learn how vowels work. Singing is vowels. So once you understand the hierarchy of vowels, it really helps knowing when to use what vowel and when to switch it for another. That can make it easier.
Can you give us an example?
For example, the vowel ah is harder to sing than the vowel ah. So ah versus ah, and then you have ah is harder to sing than and then oo is actually easier than oh.
By harder, you mean there's just more room for kind of air or for your voice to kind of like go off tangent a little bit.
Yeah, there's if you're at the top of your range and you just can't quite hit that pitch, and you just find yourself falling a little low, you can employ some of this vowel switching. Make it a bit easier to get up on the note, and you'll be surprised sometimes when you switch a vowel, like for example, in the word love, I could sing it, baby, I love you. Baby, I love you. Baby, I love you. Baby, I love you. So I'm switching between an ah sound versus an sound, but it still sounds like love.
I see. Okay, so that makes sense. So if you choose the right way to sing love, it could come out better even if you're not a singer.
Yes, and it can allow it to be sounding more relaxed and more effortless and more natural.
When working with an artist that you don't know, how do you find a way to correct them without actually offending them?
put yourself into the artist's position. They're trapped in a box, and then the producer, you have their voice on super high definition, and you can hear every detail that's happening in their voice, in their mouth. And you're likely one of the first person that's heard that song or composition, unless they performed it live. But it's a vulnerable state for them to be in. Mm-hmm. So always just give a few compliments. Don't ever approach any of your suggestions as corrections. Present them as options. Something I'll always say is, "You're doing great. It's sounding amazing. I have an idea, and it would be great to have a few options. So why don't we try this for a few takes? I think it'll be fun." Instead of saying, "I think you're doing it wrong. Do it this way."
Yeah, I could see how you can fall into that.
Because once the vibe is so important during a session.
Right.
Once you lose the vibe, and the relationship between you two, especially if it's someone who just walked into the studio, you got to keep the vibe positive, and the artist is going to come in with nerves. Part of your job as a producer is it's your space.
Especially because they don't know you. They're pretty much singing in front of a stranger.
Exactly. And they're in a new space. You got to make them feel welcome, that their artistic decisions and their artistry and talent is appreciated. Mm-hmm. And that can go a long way. So being positive, encouraging. I've had some artists come in and they start off barely hitting any right notes. And I'm like, I just be positive, supportive. And then I realize it's just their nerves. Mm-hmm. And then maybe half hour in, they're singing like Adele. Like it can switch and you don't know what's going on. Artists are emotional people.
Yeah.
They have a whole world happening there. So just give them space to be themselves.
Cool. In your entire career as a vocal coach, what has been the most difficult to teach somebody when it comes to vocals?
Patience. Mm-hmm. I get so many calls from artists, and they need their track done yesterday. They need it out immediately. They have to come see you tomorrow, and they want it mixed and mastered and finished by the week after. And then with vocals, the same thing. They want their vocals to be sounding like Michael Jackson after 2 lessons. And they view it, there's this rush that a lot of new artists I have. And when I deal with experienced artists, I know right away that they know the process. And same with developing anything, like getting in shape is a lot like building a voice. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes consistency. It takes repetition. It takes dedication. And it's a lifelong journey. People view music as, I need to do this by this year. And if it doesn't happen this year, I'm going to throw myself off a cliff. Like, it's a lifelong journey that we're putting ourselves on, and that's the beauty of it. It never ends. There's always more. The moment you create something, finish it, your mind's going to go to something more. And the biggest thing I'll say is enjoy the process. You're not going to master anything quickly, but enjoy the time to do it well. Find the right people to help you build a team. You'll get there, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Stay patient. As a producer, what makes a good vocal take?
A good, clean signal-to-noise ratio. First of all, the singer is singing at a good volume, or you've positioned the mic in a way that you're not picking up too much sibilance, and you have a good room sound, you have a good distance from the mic, and you have a good microphone choice paired with that particular singer. And then you have a good preamp, and you have a good compressor in line with that as well. So you have a good signal chain. Mm-hmm. Quality cables is important. A lot of people overlook that. You don't want to have a $4,000 preamp with a $5 cable. You want to keep that integrity all the way through. It's going to be only as good as the weakest point. From there, just making sure the gain settings are right. And then obviously, a good singer.
Yeah, makes sense. That last part is important. How do you choose what mic you're going to be using when an artist comes in like that you don't know?
Listen to their voice. I usually know if it's going to be like a male, if it's going to be a baritone, if they're going to be a tenor, or a female, and then what type of music they're singing. I usually have enough of an idea of that before they come in. There are certain mics that suit certain voice types better, and I'll usually play with 1 or 2 or 3 options. in the studio. Obviously, I don't have every single mic, and their mics are not cheap. So I work with what I have, and if I know specifically I need like something particular for a particular singer, then I might rent something.
When an artist books studio time, do you do anything before they come in to prepare yourself, or do you suggest them to do anything to prepare themselves before a recording session?
Myself, I usually have a very strong cup of coffee. And the artist, I'll say before coming in, don't eat a big meal. Sleep the night before. Don't be partying. Don't be somewhere where you had to use your voice. And, even just go in a club, you have to talk louder to be heard. So that can actually burn out your voice. Just be gentle with yourself the day before.
Do you have any techniques for helping lead vocals stand out in your mix without, while still having a leveled mix?
Make sure it's compressed to a good level, that they're nice and full. Consider adding some backing harmony lines or some subtle doubles. And then it's actually taking away what's in the way. Mm-hmm. So instead of adding more, you want to actually pull out what is below it. So even using a sidechain on some of the other instruments, so it pushes some of the other music away to really let the lead vocals shine.
Recently, what have been your go-to plugins for a vocal chain?
Obviously, it depends on the singer and what I'll use, but I'm a big fan of the FabFilter plugins. They are amazing in the sense that they really give you good graphic feedback of what you're doing. So when I'm working quickly, especially when the artist is in the room, and I don't have time to really tweak things so precisely with some of the other plugins, that can give me a quick visual feedback to get a pretty good mix right away. And then later on, I can sub some things in. But I've been very happy with the quality of the FabFilter plugins for getting a quick vocal chain, their compressor, their graphic EQ, which allows you to have an EQ that's static or dynamic.
Yeah, Q3, right?
Yeah, and they just released R2, which allows a few more variables than their old one that just came out last month. So check that one out. Another one I like to use is Oak Sound Soothe 2.
Oh, yeah.
That one's really nice for taming those harsh frequencies, which can sometimes slip through. And with this age of everyone listening to music on a phone, a phone is very high frequency dominant. Like it's got no mids, but it's really in that it wants to emphasize talking, the talking voice. I mean, that's what a phone's for. So sometimes those frequencies, which might sound natural on a regular stereo, can be emphasized too strongly on a phone. So when I'm mixing, I'll always check on a phone to make sure that's not happening, because so many people are hearing music for the first time, especially if you're going to be marketing on Instagram or TikTok. You want it to sound good on a phone.
What is a recent trick that you've learned for mixing vocals?
Usually after I get a pretty good mix with the vocals, I'm happy with the sound, I will duplicate the track and take everything off and start from scratch. And I found that the less I use, the better it's going to sound in the end. If I can get the same sound with less happening, with less plugins, with less processing, it's going to result in a more natural sound. So whereas before I might have a chain of like 10, 15 plugins running, now I'll see what I can do by dialing it back. And I've been pretty impressed with the results. And when I can, I'll even just try to do what I can with hardware.
All right. I have noticed that you have a mix cube right there. Now, they're famous for being very crappy speakers, and there must be a reason. How do you use cube in your mixing?
The mix cube is great. I have it summed to mono before it goes in there, so it's a mono mix cube, and I believe that's how they should be used. And I need to know what it's going to sound like on a consumer listening device. So a laptop, a small Bluetooth speaker, what's it going to sound like without the high fidelity of my Neumann monitors, and with the clients in the mixing booth as well, we got to hear that so I can switch it really quickly. And sometimes, actually, the mix cube is not a bad speaker. It's not amazing, but I found that it wasn't crappy enough for me. So I got some, what are they even? I think Logitech computer speakers, and I got them used just because I needed them really bad. And they help me hear what it's going to sound like on like a really bad laptop, and like what's going to translate. And it should still sound good on anything you listen to. Can I hear everything through speakers that are really unforgiving?
So do you use those speakers post mixing, or do you usually mix in with the shitty speaker first and then move it on to your professional speakers?
That's usually in the final stages of mixing.
So after everything's mixed, you do the double work and check again.
That's right.
All right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your speakers and why did you get those?
I chose to get the Neumann 310s because they are incredible speakers. They're incredibly accurate. They give a very realistic low-end sound, great mid-range, very clean, very crisp, and a sparkling high frequency. And also, for the space I'm mixing in, it's not a giant room, so it translates well for my environment and the distance I'm going to have them at. They're about 1 meter from my head, maybe 1.5 meters.
When recording an artist, do you take multiple takes of the same take? Do you swap out mics to, and then put it together in your mixing? Or what's your technique for recording a great quality vocal?
I will have the singer do as many takes as is natural. I find for some reason 4 is the magic number. But sometimes we need more if it's not coming clean, and that's fine. But if they are doing an amazing job and they're nailing it, I like 4 takes of 4 good takes, and that gives me a few options to play with while mixing. Some words just come out a bit cleaner. I don't swap out mics during takes. I like to keep the same mic so I can, once I lock in the settings, once I lock in the gain settings, the compressor settings, the everything, it takes me a little bit of time up front to get that calibrated. And once it's there, I like to keep it so that the whole recording sounds consistent.
What's your go-to compressor for vocals?
Hardware-wise, right now I'm using the Universal Audio 1176. I like to leave a soft touch on hardware compression because then I can add more later, but you can never remove. That's the thing with hardware. When you're recording something using hardware effects processing, you can't take it off later.
Yeah.
It's printed in the signal. So you have to be very, very confident on the device you're using, that it's working properly, everything's working in order, and you know how it's going to react. I would say know your equipment well, and before you commit to that effect. Now, I know a lot of guys working in massive studios who know all their equipment really well. They can do almost everything using hardware. And that's great, but it's because they've been working in there for years. They know every piece of equipment's got its own character, even 2 by the same company. Like, 2 Neve preamps are of the same model, they're going to sound slightly different.
Right.
So knowing the equipment really helps before you commit, but once you do, if you can work that way, you'll get an amazing result.
Does order of plugins matter when working with vocals? Do you EQ first, the compressor first? What's your number one plugin when you just have a fresh recording?
I'll usually start with EQ to filter out anything I don't want, and then into a compressor, and then a de-esser. The mouth declicks by Isotope are really helpful, so I'll usually want to add those in if it's a very clicky singer, especially on like more intimate sounds. So when the singer is talking very breathly and the signal to noise ratio is really low, you get a lot of sounds. So you're going to want to filter as much of that out before, and then from there, send it to reverb. I usually use reverb buses to save on processing power. Every case is different, but that's a good place to start.
What do you think of AI when it comes to vocals, and is it threatening to artists or singers?
It's an interesting time to be an artist. In Japan, you have robots and holograms giving actual concerts.
Wow.
Like, they can now imitate voices. The speed at which this AI is coming in, it's exponential. It's growing so fast, and the scary thing, it's starting to teach itself. That's when it gets scary. So being an artist these days, it's changing what it means. The value of being a songwriter is changing.
Right.
For songwriters, with AI coming in, a marketing company, instead of hiring a team of staff, they can just say, let's get the computers to do it, and just have one AI operator.
Right.
That's a new field coming in. Now it's instead of having an artist, you have an AI operator. It's an interesting time to be human, but I don't think you should stop making art, creating music. I think the importance of it is way beyond, like, we have to do it to live. Artists need to create to stay sane. I still love going to see live music. Whatever happens with AI, I still want to go to a concert on Friday night. I'm going to want to take my girl dancing. I'm going to still want to have fun. And that is a part of the industry. It's going to it's going to stay. So live music is the last stronghold until the robots start performing songs that the AI has written.
What is a green apple trick?
The green apple trick is an old technique used to help cut down mouth sounds and tongue noises during recordings. Especially helpful for audiobook takes and with singers that are very quiet. No one really knows exactly how it works, but eating a slice of green apple has to be green. Can't be red. None of that yellow nonsense. Has to be green apple. Has the right balance of sour and sweet that stimulates your saliva glands just in the right way that cuts down mouth noise. Okay. But it's a temporary boost. Like, it's a power-up that only lasts about 10 minutes. So you will want to have a bowl ready. And I've used it in sessions before, and it's crazy it works.
Wow. All right, try. Do you have green apples in the studio all the time then?
I have green apples around, yes.
That's awesome. Why do some singers squeeze during the high notes, and how do you help them?
Singers squeeze when their vocal cords are straining. In our neck, we have a lot of muscles. So when we're asking our vocal cords to do something that is beyond the muscles to execute, or they might just be too tired or they just don't have the strength, we'll engage the other muscles in our neck in almost like a spasm reflex. And so what happens is it engages the swallowing muscles. And the windpipe is located right beside the esophagus. So when we engage the swallowing muscles, you can actually see my Adam's apple as I swallow. It goes up, and that's a good telltale sign that someone's in the swallowing mode. It closes off the windpipe. So causing that constriction is what we hear is that squeezing sound. So when the vocal cords go into that panic state, it engages the swallowing muscles, and then we enter into that squeezing sound that you can't sing through because it's actually, the windpipe is actually now constricted. There's not too much you can do. It's like asking someone to bench 150 pounds when they can only do 100. But one technique is to lower the pitch of the song, so it's an easier place to do. It could be that the singer's just tired. Give them a rest. Maybe call it a day, do something else for the moment. If you're squeezing, that means you're straining your voice, and if you're squeezing all the time, you're going to end up with a vocal injury, which can take a long time to heal from. And so you want to make sure that you build your voice in a healthy way that you can actually execute the lines that you're trying to sing in a relaxed way.
What steps would you suggest to somebody just coming into the studio to warm up their vocals?
The safest way to warm up vocals is something if you spend time backstage at concerts, you'll see all your favorite singers doing this, will be the lip trill. I know it looks funny. But what it does, it creates a secondary barrier for the airflow.
Okay.
So we have our vocal cords slowing down the air, and as well as our lips. So it makes it a really safe way to take off the pressure on our vocal cords and warm up in a gentle way. That being said, it's also a great way to get into parts of your voice that you can't usually get into on a full vowel.
Interesting.
So to go, you can hit notes that you won't usually be able to hit if you were singing a word or a vowel, but it's almost like training wheels. Until you're able to get so comfortable there, then you can take the training wheels off, and then you're good. Because you always need to get in there first in a safe way.
If you're a new artist, you're looking to record yourself, you're shopping for a mic, what are you looking in the mic as a singer?
Start with a large diaphragm microphone, condenser microphone. Price range can go up really quickly. So find something in your budget. And I always recommend to buy a brand name, like a good brand that's known for microphones, because it'll have a resale value. If you go for something that doesn't have such a strong brand name, like, I don't know, AKG, for example, is a good place to start. They're known to be great, reliable microphones. So when you go to sell it, especially if you buy it used, you can sell it for the same, sometimes even more than you bought it from. You're going to have to go through a few. A great thing that a lot of people don't know is that you can rent mics. Here in Toronto, we're lucky that we have an amazing music store along McQuaid. And we take it for granted, but a lot of places don't have these types of services. You can't go rent music instruments everywhere in the world. So you can rent out a pretty high quality microphone, try it out, see how it sounds. If it works for your voice, then buy it. And if it doesn't, flip it and buy something else.
So would your recommendation be then trying out different mics to find what suits you first before making a purchase?
Always, yeah. And then you'll know what you like, what you don't like. It's a learning process, and view it as such. Like I said, it's a lifelong journey, and to start somewhere safe, you got to really make sure that your money is well spent. So buy it on something that you know is going to hold its value too.
In this world, why is vocal coaching still important and relevant?
Eventually, you want to get out of the studio and perform live. And having someone to guide you through the process of understanding your voice, how it works. It's like, how high of a level of musicianship do you want to go to? How much do you want out of your voice? Do you want to be able to use a full range of your voice? A full range of a human voice is about 3 octaves. So do you want to be able to use and access that full 3 octaves while you're performing and singing, or are you okay with just like 1.5? So how much do you want out of your voice, and how do you do it in a healthy way that you can do it for the next 40 years without hurting your voice? That's also an important thing. You can, you don't want to be yelling, and you want to be producing a tone that's healthy. And how do you even know if you're doing it right without someone to hear you back? It may sound good to your ears, and maybe you've just become familiar to doing it, but it doesn't mean it's actually healthy for you.
What distinguishes a regular singer versus like an opera singer? Are they built different, or is it different type of training that they do?
That's a great question. The instrument and the muscles are the same. We're all the same types of humans. It really just comes down to how they're using their voice and what style they're singing in. But there's no physiological distinction. It's just how they decide to sing. I had one kind of light bulb went off in my head when I was in LA studying with Michael Jackson's vocal coach. And he started playing me some of the recordings of Michael Jackson doing the same exercises that I was doing at that moment. And I'm like, wow, he actually has a full voice just like me, but he chooses to sing in the style he does. That is the Michael Jackson style.
Right.
But his voice and the way he trains it is the same as anyone else would train their voice.
So you worked with Michael Jackson's vocal coach. What is one lesson you were able to learn?
The importance of strong fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. Tell us more.
When we hear Michael Jackson, he seems like a being from another world. I mean, his voice is just incredible, what he can do with it. So it's very easy to imagine that he's an alien, like he's just some magical creature, and he's absolutely incredible. But in terms of his voice, what I learned is that he's training the same way I'm training. It's just that he's able, he's spent so much time doing this. He's worked so hard. He never talks about how many vocal coaches, like lessons he had, which was almost daily. And the different trainings he's had, different teachers he's had. He doesn't talk about it, but he's worked very hard. And he presents an image that's all effortless. Mm-hmm. That he's just a child playing around. But no, he's worked very hard. And when I was listening back to him vocalizing, doing the exercises that I was doing, I'm just like, okay, he's just an incredible singer. And he is human like the rest of us. And he has to stay on top of his game. He's having help. He has a whole team of people helping him with his voice. And so I realized if I wanted to get the most out of my voice, I needed a team behind me too. I needed to ask for help and find the best help I could.
Can training vocals overwork talent? Somebody who's not talented but trains a lot, can they beat somebody who's very talented at singing, let's say?
Yes, I think if you look at something like a good example is bodybuilding. You can have someone who has naturally good physique, or you have someone who doesn't have great genetics, but they work really hard day in and day out, eventually that person will surpass the person with the great genetics. But if the person with the great genetics starts training, and then you have, then you have like an Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. So talent really helps.
It helps, but it's nothing until it's honed.
I see. Awesome. All right. Well, that's it for me, really.